How's it going, guys? Shizukats here, and welcome to part 2 of my Varkyn guide. In part 1, we went over many characters that you could try using in your party to take on the Varkyn Cup. In this part, we're going to go more in depth on the mechanics of the fight itself to understand the best way to navigate your way through and defeat it. Just like last time with the Glossum Guide part 2, I'll be putting a sample fight afterwards as well, so you can see how I approach the fight. Before we begin, we of course have a couple quick notes. First of all, the Varkyn Cup is challenging late game content and not everyone will be well equipped to take it on as soon as it releases. But don't be discouraged, as the arena content is permanent and you can come back later and try again once you have more powerful weapons, higher levels, or new additions to your roster. Secondly, since this is a guide after all, we will be spoiling anything and everything for the fight. So if you want to try to tackle this fight blind, please close the video now and come back later. Now then, let's get right into the Varkyn Cup, starting with the enemy stats. Varkyn himself has roughly 320,000 HP and 28 shields. He's supported by the Scholar ad on the left and the Dancer ad on the right. The Scholar has around 175,000 HP and 12 shields, while the Dancer has around 155,000 HP and 16 shields. Speed-wise, all three enemies have fairly similar speed levels, with the Dancer being the fastest at 283, Varkyn in the middle at 276, and the Scholar at the bottom with 269. Because of this, it could be a good idea to adjust one of your healer's speeds to be in the middle of the enemy speeds, so that they can heal in between the enemy team's attacks. If all three enemies can all attack in a row without any of your healing in between, this could result in some deadly combinations that result in your characters getting 100 to 0'd. For weaknesses, Varkyn himself is weak to swords, staves, and ice. The Scholar is weak to swords, spears, bows, and light, while the Dancer is weak to spears, bows, tomes, and ice. Unlike the Tikiland and Glossum Cups, where the enemies had common weaknesses amongst all three of them, the enemies in the Varkyn Cup share weaknesses between at most two enemies. The Scholar and Dancer share the spear and bow weaknesses, while the Scholar shares a sword weakness with Varkyn, and the Dancer shares an ice weakness with Varkyn. Of course, there's one more very important enemy in the Varkyn Cup that we need to look at. Being a master strategist, Varkyn has some pretty serious tricks up his sleeves. Once he's fallen to around half HP, or once both of the ads have been eliminated, Varkyn will summon a Wisp at the end of that turn. This Wisp cannot be realistically killed, taking only 1 damage per hit and has 100,000 HP. The point of the Wisp is to effectively change the rules of the battle in Varkyn's favor. The first thing that the Wisp changes to the fight is that it will dispel your buffs at the end of every turn. The turn that Varkyn summons this Wisp, it will not perform this dispel, but it will every turn afterwards. This dispel means that regens will no longer work, since the regen buff will be dispelled before your characters have a chance to heal from it. Once the Wisp has been summoned, you must change to using burst healing or health regeneration through accessories, or staying in the backline in order to keep your units healthy. Additionally, you'll want to be diligent about upkeeping debuffs on the enemy team instead of utilizing buffs for your own. At any given point, the Wisp will have one weakness, which matches one of Varkyn's, and it will rotate that weakness every turn to one of the other two at random. It will also put up a permanent counter that will activate whenever its weakness is hit, which deals several thousand damage and can likely knock out one of your units in a single shot. This will not activate on Thief shield cracks though, so feel free to use them if needed. This weakness counter mechanic is designed to discourage using random target or AoE abilities and limit your attacking options. For this reason, in part 1 of my Varkyn Cup guide, I recommended focusing on units that have single target multi-hits, such as Fior, Sigrid, Trish, Sophia, and Helga, over units that have random target or AoE multi-hits, such as Lucetta and Azlight. Despite this, there is actually a certain point in the fight where you would be able to attack the Wisp's weaknesses without getting countered. However, this requires some pretty specific circumstances that I'll go into more at a later part of the video. In theory, you could also use skills like Analyze to reveal the Wisp's weaknesses without needing to actually attack it. This could potentially allow you to attack with skills that would otherwise be considered unsafe. However, none of the units with Analyze that are currently available in EN at the time of this video's release are really suitable for this fight, so maybe this will be a more viable strategy to take down Varkyn in the future. For the enemy attacks, let's start with the two ads. Both the Scholar and Dancer primarily attack using Dark Magic. The Scholar has a one-hit single target Dark as well as a one-hit AoE Dark. He can also use a one-hit AoE Tome attack and a buff skill that increases the magic defense of all enemies for 3 turns. The Dancer has a one-hit AoE Dark and one-hit AoE Fan. For buffs, she can cast a team-wide magic up that lasts for 3 turns, as well as a team-wide 15% speed up, which lasts for 3 turns. This speed up will increase the enemy team's speed to 317 on Varkyn, 309 on the Scholar, and 325 on the Dancer. Lastly, she can cast an AoE light defense down debuff on your front row. Varkyn himself is, of course, a light attacker. He can use a 1-hit single target light, 1-hit AoE light, and 3-hit random target light, which inflicts light defense down for 2 turns per hit. This is a skill that you might recognize from Odette, as she has the exact same skill in her kit. Unfortunately, this time it's being used against you. Notably, this light defense down debuff can stack with the debuff applied by the Dancer, which can result in some pretty ridiculous light damage if you aren't properly buffing and debuffing. Varkyn can also use a 2-hit tome single target, which isn't really a big deal, and he can debuff one of your character's magic and magic defense for 3 turns. Upon reaching around red HP, Varkyn will give himself a permanent magic up. His spells can deal some pretty nasty damage once this buff is in effect. I remember in some of my early Varkyn attempts, his light AoE spell knocked out 3 members of my front row at the same time because I wasn't respecting his damage potential. Be sure to upkeep debuffs as much as you can to avoid this from happening to you. Finally, his aura attack is a 3-hit light single target. Compared to his 3-hit random target, this can easily 100-0 a single unit if Varkyn has the proper setup. Apart from deleting your buffs and putting up its weakness gimmick, the Wisp also has a couple attacks of its own. Typically, it will use a 3-hit random target light that inflicts light defense down for 2 turns per hit. Just like Varkyn's version of this spell, it can stack to make your character significantly more vulnerable to light magic. Additionally, for its other attacks, it can also sap a chunk of SP from your entire front row, or it can remove 3 BP from a single target. Once Varkyn reaches the 50% HP threshold, it will start to act twice per turn as well. There are 2 ways I recommend approaching this fight, but both of them start the same way. The first unit that you'll probably want to be targeting in this fight is the Scholar. Since there are many great options for warriors to bring to this fight, as well as him only having 12 shield points, it's very easy to single him out and bring him down quickly compared to the Dancer. After eliminating the Scholar, there are a few ways that you can approach the next section of the fight. The first option is to focus on and eliminate the Dancer as quickly as possible, which would result in the Wisp being summoned immediately after. This method comes with some pros and cons. The first pro is obviously that you won't have to deal with the Dancer's buffs and debuffs anymore. Additionally, this will cause the Wisp to be summoned immediately after she's knocked out, which means that you'll have an opportunity to attack and reveal the Wisp's weaknesses before it puts up its counter when Varkyn reaches around 50% HP. This can potentially be helpful if you have characters with AoE abilities such as Cardona, since you'll be able to see when the Wisp is or isn't weak to certain attacking types. However, this strategy doesn't come without its cons. The Wisp showing up means that your buffs will no longer apply and you'll have to swap to burst healing immediately. Additionally, while the Dancer being eliminated means that she cannot debuff you anymore, unfortunately the Wisp comes with the light defense down debuff of its own, which also deals damage at the same time since it's a 3-hit random target light attack. Personally, I'm of the opinion that it's not worth going for this method, and I instead recommend going for this second method. The method that I personally prefer going with is trying to juggle damage between Varkyn and the Dancer to try to line up KOing the Dancer around the same time Varkyn drops to around the 50% HP threshold when he summons the Wisp. This would allow you to keep your buffs around until that point, which in my experience gives you a much easier time during this phase of the fight, as you can use your regen as a safety net while you can cycle allies back and forth to get your SP back before entering the later phases of the fight. This does require a bit of HP management between the 2 enemies, but I personally don't think that it's too much of an issue. Once you're in the back half of the fight, you want to emphasize speed and efficiency. The longer you let the fight drag on, the harder it will become, since Varkyn will cast increasingly powerful spells, and the Wisp will chip you down, apply debuffs, and steal all your SP and BP, all the while you're unable to use any regen. You can try to use your BP in a way that can bring down Varkyn's shields as quickly as possible, utilizing multi-hit basic attacks. Sometimes, sacrificing a bit of extra damage on your nukes in Break can make the difference that allows you to break Varkyn a second time before he can explode your team in a few turns. So be wary of your options instead of just playing the same old strategies. Finally, once Varkyn has been defeated, the Wisp will KO itself at the end of the turn. Now let's take a look at the composition that I'll be using for the sample fight. Since this arena has a greater emphasis on speed and high damage, and can punish compositions that can't win fast enough, I'll be using 3 5-star units for this sample comp compared to the previous 2 that I used in the Tiki Land and Glossom Cups. Those 5-star units in the sample comp this time around are Sophia, Fior, and Teo. While Teo is definitely not the optimal choice for a regen caster compared to Agnes, he's still a pretty serviceable unit, and I'll be showing how I approach the fight when using him instead. While my 4-star units are max level and awakened, it's still worth noting that using appropriate 5-star units, such as Viola and Cardona, would be preferred if you have them. The 4-star units that I'm using for the sample composition are Kurtz, Helga, Sigrid, Ramona, and Noelle. Sigrid and Helga are the attacking units, with Sigrid having a very solid 3-hit sword attack, while Helga has spear AoE and 2-hit ice. Ramona is an ice attacker as well as a burst healer and magic defense buffer for the later stages of the fight. Kurtz and Noelle are here to make sure that Varkyn's magic stat is lowered as much as possible at all times to minimize how much damage we're taking, and this will be accomplished through a combination of Kurt's anti-attack and Noelle's elemental crush. All of my units' skill sets are identical to the ones in part 1 of my Varkyn guide, with an emphasis on single target abilities rather than random target. This means I will not be using the random target debuffing skills on Sophia, and I'll be treating the Wisp as though its weaknesses are completely hidden, even though you will see some of them revealed in the upcoming gameplay. For equipment, it's definitely recommended to use Sacred 4s on all of your units if possible. In this particular sample video, I'm using Sacreds on Sophia, Kurtz, Helga, and Ramona, with a Fenrir 4 on Sigrid, Innocent 4 on Noelle, and weaker weapons on Fior and Teo to compensate for their Awakening 1. For defensive equipment, everyone should be running Magic Defense Up hoods and robes. For notable accessories, I have a Dragon Scarf 4 on Sophia and an Ebony Dragon Scarf on Fior. Since they're my most valuable attackers that I'll be using the most throughout the fight, I want to make sure that their SP pools are as healthy as possible. I put a bit of HP investment on Sophia and Helga, but for completely different reasons. Sophia has plus 200 HP and 20 SP on her accessory in order to help her survivability, since she's relatively frail. On the other hand, I want high HP on Helga in order to more effectively use her full HP taunt passive without also putting her in danger. Apart from those, the rest of the accessories are some pretty standard options, with a skilled Warrior's Emblem on Fior, Warrior's Emblem on Sigrid, and Ice Rune 2 on Ramona. Now then, let's get right into the fight. Alright, let's get started. So for our composition, our main attacking force obviously is going to be Sophia and Fior. The way we're going to do the fight is we're going to have Fior and Sigrid look to take down the Scholar ad as soon as possible, and then we're going to go for the strategy where we try to have Varkyn hit around 50% HP when he summons the Wisp, around the same time that we KO the Dancer. So we're going to start here with Teo casting his fully boosted regen on all of our frontline units, just to make sure that that's being applied on those units. And then for our turn 2, what we're going to do is we're going to have Kurtz and Noelle come up from the back line and cast their magic down. It's going to be Kurtz's anti-attack and Noelle's elemental crush on Varkyn. And we're going to have our warriors continue to attack the Scholar. So we're not looking to break on the next turn. I'm still going to do one more turn of prep before we go. We're going to have Sophia move back up to the front to attack the Dancer a bit more. I'm going to use one more collapse charge here. And we're actually going to have Ramona cast an AoE magic defense up buff just to lessen some of the incoming damage. Alright, now it's time to go for our first break. As far as which skill I'm going to use, I'm going to be using the 2-hit AoE for this, so that it also puts some of the damage onto Varkyn at the same time. That's pretty much what I'm going to be doing for most of my damage while the enemy is in break, instead of just going for the collapse charges. And then as for Sophia's turn, she does have a lot of BP right now, so we're just going to go ahead and use one of those just to make sure we're not wasting any of that. And we'll have Teo cast another turn of regen. Okay, so I am going to be looking to get a break on the dancer coming up. And in order to set up some defense down, what I'm going to do is I'm going to have both Noelle's Elemental Crush as well as Sophia's Tome defense down applied on the dancer. Just make sure that those are targeted correctly. And then we're going to do fully boosted sword attacks on Fior and Sigrid to do a lot of damage while the Scholar is in break. Alright, next we're going to look to set up the dancer for a break. So we'll go ahead and... this is also going to allow for some HP regen, or some SP regen on Fior and Sigrid, as I have been using them in the front line this entire time. And we'll go ahead and also have Ramona just use a heal, just make sure everyone is nice and topped up. Since I do have a couple units in right now that do not have HP regen, such as Noelle. Alright, and now we're all set up for the break. What I'm going to do is I'm going to have Sophia initiate the break with the multi-hit skill, just to get in the extra damage from the subsequent hits. Meanwhile, I'm going to have Fior and Sigrid switch back in from the back line. And we'll also just get in some more regen. And then on the next turn, we're going to have Sophia use her AoE ice spell instead for the break damage. So we'll go to the AoE spell. We're going to go with the same rotation that we went with last time for the Scholar. And yeah, we're just kind of doing our thing here. Okay, now that the dancer has come out of break, we're going to have Sophia switch back to Kurtz just to reapply anti-attack on Varkyn. Just make sure that that capped 30% magic down debuff is staying maintained. We're going to have Fior use her collapse charge again, and we're going to switch to Ramona here to use her defensive buff. And yeah, that's pretty much good. And now we're all set up for a break on our next turn. Alright, we're going to break with the 2-hit AoE. Yeah, we're kind of just doing the usual. And we'll have Sophia switch back to attacking the dancer. Alright, so this next round of attacks should eliminate the Scholar. And I'm going to take this opportunity to also cast Elemental Crush on the dancer, just make sure she's not doing very much damage either. Okay, now with the Scholar out of the way, what I'm going to do is, with Fior and Sigrid being as low SP as they are, I'm going to go ahead and utilize this time to have them swap to the back line and have Helga and Ramona do a bit of work. And in the meantime, I'm going to actually have Helga reduce Varkyn's shield points a bit. Now we're going to be aiming for both the dancer and the and Varkyn's 50% phase to start around the same time. Let's see. How do we want to... I'm not going to cast a fully boosted regen from Teo because I'm going to do a fully boosted one next turn once Helga and Ramona are in the front row, because Teo is the fastest. He's not going to be able to apply regen to them this turn, so we're going to do it next turn. And so what I'm doing here is I'm basically just prepping the Dancer to go down to 1 shield for when I break later. But that's going to be quite a bit later. Let's see. So I think we just go with the exact same thing. I think for this turn we could just also apply some magic defense up just for a bit of safety. Gonna cast this here, and then I'm gonna have Noelle make sure that Varkyn is properly debuffed. We'll go ahead and use 1 BP just to not be inefficient. And the Dancer is all set up for later, once we're ready to come to her. We're gonna swap this to Varkyn. I'm gonna go ahead and use Sophia's Tome skill on him. Let's see. I want to keep getting a bit more SP on my backline, so we're just going to keep these units here. Cast some more regen. We'll just go ahead and put some more anti-attack. How much is this going to set up? This is going to set up... I'm going to use max boosted on Helga, and... we'll use max boosted on both Helga and... I think I'll... How much do I want to use on Ramona? I want to give Ramona enough BP to use later on, potentially, for staff multi-hitting. So, I think we'll just use 1 BP from Ramona. And then this is going to put Varkyn and the ad at just 1 shield apiece, and sets us up for the next turn. Okay, now we're basically ready. We have quite a bit of SP back on our warriors, so it's time to go in. I'm going to also break the ad at the same time with a with an AoE spell from Sophia. And as far as Sigrid, what I'm going to do with Sigrid is I'm going to cast a 3 BP skill on this turn, but I'm not going to use any BP on the follow-up turn because I specifically want the BP to be usable for multi-hits. And let's see. Yeah, we can just go ahead and put some more debuff. Use this turn on putting some more debuffs via Noelle. After this next round of attacks, we should be in a good spot to proceed forward. We're going to have Collapse Charge Max here, AoE here. I'm going to go ahead and just put... This isn't going to actually matter once the buffs get dispelled, but I'm going to put Elemental Boost from Noelle onto Sophia. Even though this isn't going to land on her before she uses her attack, this could potentially lessen the incoming damage from Varkyn because it does give magic defense up. Okay, so we didn't quite actually kill the ad at the same time, but she has low enough HP that we can just go ahead and knock her out on this upcoming turn. So I'm gonna have... So the Wisp is not going to have any weakness yet because it doesn't generate a weakness on the turn that it's summoned. So we will go ahead and just... We can go ahead and do something like this. We'll just AoE this. I don't care too much about Helga's BP anymore because she can't like multi-hit with attacks. And what will we do with Noelle this turn? I think we'll just have her cast like Wind here, just in case, I guess. Okay, we're good. Now the Wisp is out. It is going to generate a weakness and put up its counter field on our next turn. So now we want to start swapping to our single target abilities. On this particular turn, I'm going to use Sigrid Max Attack. And is there anybody that's not full HP? There is not. So Teo isn't really doing much on this turn. Guess we'll just have him swap to the front line. Okay, we'll have him just heal himself. I'm gonna bring Ramona to the front line. Use a bunch of attacks here. This is gonna be 9 shields broken. And we're getting real close. Oh boy. Okay, Varkyn is going to be acting last on this turn because he's using his aura attack. This is a perfect opportunity for me to just get my healing in. And I am going to break on this turn with a 3-hit from Fior. And we're going to follow that up with some max boosted attacks on our next turn. I'll go ahead and use Ramona to heal on this turn, though. Alright, Fior is out of SP, unfortunately, as the Wisp did target her with that. So on this turn, we're going to swap her to the back with Helga, so that Helga can attack with her Ice Spell. And then we'll just have Sophia continue to attack with Ice. Let's see, Ramona acts before the Wisp. I'm going to use Ramona for Ice Attack on this turn, and then we'll have Teo top up Sophia's HP as well. And we should be good. Okay. Now this final part of the fight is just going to be all about eliminating Varkyn as fast as I possibly can. I'm going to keep Helga in the front for this turn just to get some more SP back on Fior. We'll have Teo heal himself. So Varkyn has now that he's in red HP, he has implied a magic up buff on himself that is permanent and lasts for the rest of the fight. So hopefully the fight won't last very much longer and he won't be able to bombard us with 3,000 damage light AoE. Just for the sake of bringing this guy's shields down as fast as possible, we're going to go ahead and have Ramona do a quad attack. I'm going to use Teo to top up Helga. And we're getting real close to the finish line, guys. Oh, here comes the big one. Alright, we are seeing Teo go down here. But just because of how low Varkyn is from this stage, I'm pretty sure we can just finish him off with our last few attacks. So we'll go ahead and just use our strongest available nukes. 3 hit here is great. And then, sure, Noel. Get him, Noel! Yep. And then once Varkyn is eliminated, the Wisp will eliminate itself at the end of the turn. And we are all finished. And we did take a couple deaths, but that's just kind of how the fight is towards the end of the fight. It really is just a race against time. As Varkyn's damage just really starts to ramp up, you really just gotta be able to finish him off as soon as you can. And there we have it. So that is my sample fight for the Varkyn Cup. I know this did go a bit long. This fight does have quite a few intricacies and some hoops that you will want to be jumping through and watching out for. So if you guys enjoyed the video, then go ahead and let me know down in the comment section below. Thanks to everybody for watching, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye.